We have two experiences of people of faith with God this morning, and they're very different experiences. We don't hear that Abram has had any encounters with God before Genesis 12. It just starts right in, and God, the Lord said, "Go from this country." And Abraham got up and left. Yes, he had a promise, but we don't hear anything about who this God was. We don't hear about what relationship Abram might have had with God. It's just, go. Now, pack up your tents, pack up your family, and go to an unknown place with an unknown future based on my promises. And we all look at Abraham in awe and say, wow, how did he do that? Maybe you don't, but I certainly do. Because if I'm standing here and God suddenly speaks and says, get up and get out of Montclair, I want you to go someplace, I will tell you, I will lead you, but I think I'd be more like Nicodemus to say, what's going on, God? Where am I headed? Why am I headed there? Abram has already made a journey. His father Terah took him and his brothers out of Ur of the Chaldees, and they land in Haran. And now they're told, get up and go again. When we talk about Nicodemus, he already knows who this Jesus is. He sits on the ruling council, the Sanhedrin. He's heard about this man and the miracles and the signs that he has performed. He knows that he is teaching the people a radically different way of living than he and his fellows in the ruling council have taught all their lives, that they were taught when they were children. And now suddenly, something percolates within Nicodemus. And the Gospel of John is written to give you clues ahead of time. John, the author of John, uses irony and uses different clues to let us know what's coming up. So we hear that Nicodemus is going to meet Jesus at night, in the dark. Clue number one, this isn't going to go well. When it happens at night, he's not going to get it. That's our clue as the listener when we hear this. And the gospel writer is setting Nicodemus up because in the following chapter, Jesus is going to meet a Samaritan woman at the well in the heat of the day. Those in the Thursday night Bible study group will remember this lesson, right? So Nicodemus meets at night, the Samaritan woman during the day. Nicodemus is part of the ruling council, a head in the religious authorities, and he doesn't quite get it. But the Samaritan woman, she accepts it immediately, runs to her village. And when I read the commentators, when you read any discussion of this text, everyone rags on Nicodemus for resisting Jesus. Yet there's nothing that says Nicodemus says, I refuse to believe it. He asks questions. How can this be? My whole world was built on this way of living, and suddenly you're saying, no, That's not it. You've got to change. You need to be somebody different, Nicodemus. I resonate with that story of Nicodemus because it so much mirrors my own personal life and faith journey. As a married, gay father of 3, partner in a local accounting firm, and the organist, Sunday school teacher, and catechism teacher in my church, I was living with something inside me that I could not bring to the light. I was not a straight man. And it took 40 years plus for me to figure that out. You don't discuss that in the light of day. You don't walk down to breakfast one morning and say to your wife, you know what? I don't think I want you anymore. I think I'd rather be with a man. We won't go into those circumstances. But what I'm trying to bring to you is that questioning that you have, that inability to express it, because it is so earth-shattering. You know the moment you speak it, you will lose everything. Life will never be the same. The other reason I say we shouldn't rag too much on Nicodemus is if we read further in the Gospel of John, in chapter 7, we find Nicodemus sticking up for Jesus, asking the council to give him due process before the law. And then in chapter 19, when Jesus has died and Joseph of Arimathea goes to claim the body, it is Nicodemus who brings the myrrh and aloes, the many spices that are needed to embalm the body, to anoint the body, to honor him before he's buried. So Nicodemus took a while. It took him seeing that Jesus was willing to lay down his life, literally see him lay down his life for his own. And then he could say, the light bulb goes on. Just like those of us who come out later in life, it takes sometimes a cataclysmic event for us to sit there and say, yes, I am gay. And then experience what happens when you lose family and church and your job, and you have to start over. But just as John O'Donohue writes in the poem that's in the front of your bulletin, when your courage is kindled and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, and believe me, when I came out, it was far from clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desire. When you are finally living your reality in the light and able to be an authentic person, fully and completely with those who know you and used to love you, you find that there are new folks who will take you in, who will embrace you and remind you that God does love you. God so loved the world that God gave God's Son even for a gay man like Ron Verblauuw. Even for those of us who think we are the worst creatures that may be walking this earth, God reminds us there is a place for you. There is a place for us in God's kingdom. There is a place for us at God's table because that table is God's, not ours, and the welcome is full and complete for each one of us. When we hear this text, when we hear Abram go out with confidence and courage, let's also remember the Nicodemuses among us who have to sit and ponder it and think about it before we can say, yes, that is my God. That is the person I can trust will take me and lead me home. May God add God's blessing. Amen.